an Undertow content podcast.
Undertow Content acknowledges the traditional custodians of the land on which we are recording this podcast. We pay our respects to elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people Australia-wide.
From Undertow Content, you're listening to Cut, the podcast, where we deep dive into the many facets of the entertainment industry, both locally and internationally.
We're bringing you unfiltered stories and raw insights with no gatekeeping. We're your hosts, Amanda Brown
And Nell Nacken.
Today's expert interview is a really fun and inspiring one with producer Andrew Shaw, who is another Aussie living and working in New York City as the director of digital at The Kelly Clarkson Show. His Instagram makes me insanely jealous. But before we jump into our chat, shall we start within the news and talk about how do we get people back to the cinema?
How?
How do we do that?
We are starting off with an article written by Owen Gleiberman for Variety in August 2024 with the headline, "Will the people who say they love the cinema the most come back to the movies?" Gleiberman goes on to assess the Northern Hemisphere's summer box office and the films that were released, saying that the summer movie season is now all but over. The tea leaves are in and everyone in the industry is working hard to read them. Sizing up the future of movies, should we be hopeful, fearful, somewhere in between? He goes on to talk about the fact that there were many big hits this summer and that is reason to celebrate and that people still like to go to the movies.
But the total box office receipts lagged behind those of 2023, so there's a reason to be wary. But the impact of the strike still registered this summer in a profound way, since there wasn't enough product to satisfy demand. That's good news. It means that the demand is there and that the situation can be rectified in 2025. I think this all makes sense given the state of the industry, but what I found most fascinating about his article was this. Back in the 90s, when the blockbuster age was in full swing, with the independent film revolution happening right alongside it, I knew who I was rooting for on a weekly basis. I'll confess that I sometimes thought of popcorn movie audiences as the bad guys, and the audiences for adventurous indie and foreign films as the good guys. The bad guys kept the engine of escapism whirring, but the good guys helped to sustain cinema as an art form. That may sound snobby or unfair, but it's how I thought of it.
Oh, I love that.
I know. He goes on to say, what I would never have expected to see is that the formulation turned on its head. To me, the audiences that made hits this summer out of Inside Out 2 and Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes are now the good guys. They're the ones who are keeping cinema, or at least some version of it, alive. But what about the good guys of the 90s, the adventurous moviegoers whose enthusiasm sparked the rise of indie film? Have they all gone away? No, but sorry, they've become the bad guys because they're the ones who are staying home. We know why. The rise of streaming, the hangover of the pandemic, oversized TV screens, the 25 minutes of trailers you have to endure in theatres, yada, yada, yada. The trouble with this familiar litany of a changed culture is that we tend to accept it as the truth, when the reality may be more pliable. The real truth is that millions and millions of people, many of them with big TVs, still go out to the movies. The question is, why aren't more of people who say they love cinema among them?
I think this is so fascinating and a great question to ask, especially because right now we're in the thick of award season, and Gleiberman goes on to talk about this too, that there are films that are coming out that sit more in the indie space rather than the blockbuster space as they race towards nominations. But as Gleiberman points out, those movies more and more are holding on by the skin of their teeth at the box office. There are still films coming out that sit in blockbuster mode, for example, Gladiator 2. But I really resonate with what Gleiberman says later in the article, which is we need nothing less than a collective rediscovery of what commercial filmmaking can mean.
Yeah. How do we do that and what does that mean? Genuinely, what does that mean?
I mean, I love what he talked about with like the 90s and like the era of the blockbuster. Like, wasn't that a great time?
Yes, it really was. It's funny, I was thinking about it the other day and people talk about the golden age of Hollywood back in like the 50s.
It was the 90s.
Yeah, there was something about the blockbuster. And that's what, movies are good for any size film. I recently went to see Gladiator 2 and I was like, I want to go and sit in a recliner. Not that we've always had recliners, but I want to see it on a big screen. And it was just that experience of it. Oh God, I love the movies. And I think, again, it's the experience of it. And I think the 90s with the blockbusters, it was the experience of it.
Yeah.
That looks very different today. Well, not very different, but it's a different audience now. And I think with everything that's gone on, we're now seeing it's still an experience, but I think maybe it's more of an emotional experience. If we're looking at horror films or something like that, it's almost people want that collective experience.
Yeah. Filmmakers or marketing teams have to work harder to get people to go to the cinema to see a film. So it has to be an experience. We've seen this with Barbenheimer, right?
Yes.
Horror films, Marvel films.
Yeah.
These are all the ones that tick that box for that experience, that event.
100%.
We've seen this as well with some of the writers that we're working with, the fashion industry, make it like a whole thing. I mean, the Victoria's Secret fashion show this year was like a whole event.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing. What fashion does, it's a one-off. So like they have their...
You've got to be there.
Yeah, you got to be there to experience it. And you dress for the occasion and you show up and it's a collective experience. And it's almost like this, if you're not there, you miss it. And I wonder if that's something that we need to rethink when it comes to cinemas, is like, in order to get more people there, it becomes more of an event. It's not just a premiere for the people who made the film. You can't get into a premiere a lot of the time unless you're invited. But what if we had a film and it showed at the Opera House for a week and it was an event? A really good example of that in Sydney, actually, is the open air cinema. The big cinema in Mrs. Macquarie's Chair in Sydney. It's an experience and it sells out. People go and it's really busy. So I think that's a really good incentive to get people to go and watch the movies.
Totally. How else do you reckon, like from your experience, would be a way to get people back into the cinema?
Well, I think incentivizing people to go to the movies, like, and also it's this thing of creating an experience, like, you know, you were saying with Barbie, people got together with their friends, they dressed in pink and they went to the movies. So I think it starts way before the movie premieres, and it also depends on the movie as well. But it's this idea of it's an occasion, it's an event, it's a get involved. And it's also tapping into the digital space, like people being able to post things and share things, shareable things that they can share from being at that movie. We live in the digital world and our audiences more and more as we get older. And we get into the new generations who have come up with technology and with screens and social media.
Yeah.
It is all about social media for them. It is all about being able to share on social media. So it's that shareability. It's being culturally relevant. It's like, I'm at this movie and that means something about me and my personal brand. So there's something about that too. Mm-hmm. But it's also educating people on the value of film and the value of these stories that are being made and why they should invest their money in going to the cinema rather than just waiting for it to come on streaming. And don't get me wrong, streaming's great for people who can't go to the movies. Some people just don't have the time. They're really busy. Life is a lot for everyone.
Or the money.
Exactly. Going to the cinema can be expensive. It's not a priority for a lot of people. It's the thing that falls off most of the time before everything else. So I think it's definitely about helping people to understand why it's important that we go and support it. It's like people want to go to sports games.
But also it happens then, right? I've said to Howard, I'm like, don't you want to watch it later? And he's like, no, I know the score. Like it's all over.
Yeah. And that's it. Why do people want to go to sports games? It's fun. It's like the energy, blah, 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 blah.
How do we do that for movies?
Yes.
Spoilers.
Yeah. It's true. Exactly. And I think it's the event like experience. It's really leaning into what experience are we giving the people who are showing up and spending their money to watch this film. So streaming makes it easier for people to just sit at home. And as we were just talking about, as the article talks about, there's still a bit of a hangover of that. Like the last few years have been a lot.
Great.
For a lot of people. Mm. So it's encouraging people to get out and about. I think that's organically happening anyway. I know I didn't go to the movies for a really long period of time. And then I went to the movies and I sat there and watched this epic film. I was like, oh my God, I love the movies. And now I almost like re-fell in love with it. And now I've realized that my local cinemas, they're tiny, they're small cinemas that have been around for ages and they're very local, but they show a lot of those indie films that I actually really want to watch. And it's also like getting off our screens too, like forget the doom scroll or like, pick one night a month and go to the movies. People used to do that all the time. It was like a Friday night movie. And I know in Jeannie and Deb, who we've interviewed for this show, they're in LA. They are AMC Stub members, which means you can see 3 movies a week. I was thinking about that actually. Are there 3 movies a week that you can see? In the article, it talks about the volume, and I don't think we've caught up again yet. Our expert conversation today is with the Emmy-nominated Webby Award-winning producer that is Andrew Shaw. Andrew is basically my brother from another mother, and I have first-hand experience watching his career trajectory. To say this man is motivated is an understatement. He started as a runner on Home and Away and worked his way up the ranks. He then went over to Nickelodeon and after winning the green card lottery, made the leap to LA and landed his dream job at the Ellen DeGeneres Show. He's now the director of digital at the Kelly Clarkson Show, and we know you are going to love this conversation. Enjoy. Thank you for joining us. We are so excited to have you.
Absolute pleasure, Nell and Amanda. Thank you for having me.
Tell us about what is it that you do?
Well, what I do, I am the director of digital for the Kelly Clarkson Show here in NBC in New York. What that encompasses is I lead an incredible team of digital experts, editors and producers and people on websites and social media producers to basically create, produce, execute all the content that the world sees around the Kelly Clarkson Show. So that's both content on the show and then original social content that we make with Kelly and all of our celebrities here at 30 Rock. So it's an incredible job and very grateful to be able to do what I do. It's a lot of fun every day.
Where did you start and how did you get
Where did I start? I started all the way back in Newcastle. That's where I grew up. And I went to Newcastle University studying VisCom, visual communication design, majoring in both graphic design and television production. So 2 very different majors. Wow. Everything visual I was just obsessed with. I just loved learning about the creative process and whatnot. But learning at Newer Uni was fantastic. My goal was to be in the television and film industry. From the age of 15, I was 15. I remember so vividly that my dream, my goal was that I wanted to work in television. I wanted to work on one show. I was this gay kid growing up in small town. I can't say small town country Newcastle. It's bloody 400,000 people. It's bigger than Boston. But I always wanted to work on the Ellen DeGeneres Show. I was like, where is this personality going to fit? Like, where do I fit in on this planet? Like, what can I do that feels creative and that I can also be giving back and doing something that adds to joy that people get to be a part of every day? And I was like, that's the Ellen DeGeneres Show. And I thought, how the heck am I going to make this happen? But it wasn't like, oh, that's never going to happen. I just said that this is what I'm going to do. And I started walking towards that path. So I said, what do I do? I'm going to go to university. I'm going to study. And I'm going to get as much experience in the industry in Australia as possible. So then when I go over there, I'm not starting from scratch. I'm not trying to fit into the 300 and 400 million people who live here and try and fight my way up. I was going to make myself something in Australia and then move over. So I decided to do that. So once I graduated university, I freelanced on 2 separate shows while at university still. That was the first season of MasterChef Australia. Nice. With Poe, which I was obsessed with. I was just the driver. I drove talent around to the different locations, but it was so cool to see the process. And then I worked on, I think it was season 4 of Australia's Next Top Model. And so I got to work on these 2 pinnacle reality TV shows. And it just inspired me. I was like, this is so cool. And once I've actually graduated the University of Newcastle, I got introduced to someone who worked on the little up-and-coming scripted series called Home and Away. And I went and I interviewed with them. And the next day I had the job. And so I graduated and my first job out of university was Home and Away. And I just could not believe it. So I packed up my things. I moved to Sydney. And that was the start of my career in Australia. It was incredible.
How did you get the roles on the 2 reality shows?
For me, it's always been about who I know. And I love meeting people. I love networking. It's always been a skill of mine, but I've always been friends with people who are older. I've always connected with people who have a lot of drive and who have a lot of wisdom, but also a lot of character. I just love meeting people because I I just felt so out of place in a way with the people my age at school.
Mm.
And so I loved older people. And so I met these people who knew people who worked on different shows, who did different things in Sydney, because I'm in Newcastle. And so people in the industry who moved back from Sydney to Newcastle are few and far between, but there's still a lot of them. So when I'm asking for opportunities and I have this drive and this real go-getter attitude, they were so incredible of introducing me to people and saying, "Oh, hey, I know someone who's on that show. Would you want this opportunity?" And I was like, 100%. So I'd always say yes. And, I was always a yes man because I just wanted to get as much experience as possible, and grateful for that.
And what was the role on Home and Away?
So as a Home and Away, I started off as a production assistant and driver. So I was driving the talent to set. And so I remember like Esther Anderson, who's now like still a dear friend of mine to this day. Her first day on Home and Away, I picked her up from her house and drove her to Palm Beach to Summer Bay. And it was just the weirdest thing because, these people are unknown, but then when they go on Home and Away, they become massive Australian celebrities and you get to just know these people. But then when you're on set, you get to know the industry, you get to see how every single role works. So I would get up there and I would just watch like a hawk. I would look at what the roles are. Like, what am I excited about? Like, what kind of roles do I feel like my personality or skills would be able to sort of fit into? And I saw that being an assistant director was something that I really loved because there was the first assistant director who directed all the crew and talent. And then there was the second AD who was moving talent between like where they need to be and the right location. And the third AD was the people who directed the background extras. And I loved that. It was like theater. I was like, okay, you're going to pick up the coffee and move from camera right to left and sit down at that chair. On this line, you're going to move forward, fix your hair, and then go into your purse and then get out your phone and walk. Like you literally got to create the background world of extras and make it as natural as possible. And I loved it. And so that's what I focused on. And I started to learn from all the third ADs on sets. I think within about 5 months or 6 months, I had a couple of opportunities because I stubbornly kept hounding our production manager, please let me try. And within a couple of months, they let me sort of start doing my own episodes. And that was it. I never looked back. It was so fun.
And so you obviously made the leap at some point from the Australian industry to the US industry. What led up to that and how did you do that?
It is such a daunting process. So many Australians with this same kind of drive that we have, Amanda. It's how I know you. You've always had that American inclination as well. There's always that drive to want to get over there, but the process with visas, the process with getting jobs, it is so hard. At the time before I moved over, I worked for Channel 7, Channel 9, and then I was at Nickelodeon for 5 years. I was one of their producers and directors to produce and direct all their like big reality shows and main TV shows. It was just so incredible. And the final year that I was there, I just knew, I was like, I have so much experience. I'm ready. I'm ready to go to LA. I had been applying for the green card lottery for just 2 years. And then when I was ready to move over, I then talked to an immigration lawyer to start to apply for an O1 visa. There was an E3 visa and an O1 visa. And I started to talk to this lawyer and I was about to pay him literally within the week, $12,000 to start the process. I was happy to do it. I've been working towards this. Here's my money. Let's get to America. And that week, I got the email saying, congratulations, you've been accepted into the DV lottery system.
Isn't that amazing?
What is happening?
Yeah.
Could this be more kismet? Is this meant to be? It's changed my life because I never had to renew visas or keep applying or keep worrying about that I'm locked into this job because I was attached to that visa. I had a green card to America and I got to walk in and work for anyone that I wanted. Doesn't mean that I was going to get any job because my God, that industry is hard to break into. But it just changed my life getting that green card. I don't know what it is. I don't know whether I'm not arrogant. I'm not up myself. I just have this sense of, oh yeah, that's what I'm going to do. Like, there's no option to not do that. There's no option to settle or like not conquer my dreams. We live on this planet for one short life, and I'm obnoxiously, toxically positive. I'm like, I'm going to make it happen. Let's go. With all our wonderful people around us. It's all this big, wonderful team effort of Aussies who live over in America that we all just stick together, and that's the support that really does help get so many people through.
Well, you got to LA and you eventually landed at a pretty big show, which was the Ellen DeGeneres show. And then you've had...
I got the dream show.
You got the dream job, which is amazing. And I think you said, I'm going to go and I want to work on the Ellen DeGeneres show. And you went and you got that job, which is incredible.
It took a year. It was a
Okay,
whole
yeah, tell us
year of
that.
networking and freelancing and meeting people and taking people out to dinners and like executive producers of that show or this network. It was a year of frivolous networking to the point where on my 30th birthday that Amanda was at, my 30th birthday party, I had $16 left in my bank account. That was 9 months after I moved. I had just enough money to pay for the ice that got dropped off at the party. And I bought the ice and I had the best freaking birthday with all these new friends that I'd met over 9 months. And somehow there was like 100 people in this house. I'm like, are we that close? Doesn't matter. Let's have a party. And it was just such a fun time. And that was September. And then a month later, I had been talking with this guy. This is a funny story. I'd been on this app called Tinder and I'd been talking with like all these amazing people in LA. It was really fun to meet new people. And there was one guy that was so sweet and he was just so lovely. And we kept chatting. We never got to meet up. But then one night he just said, hey, I was on a Friday night. Do you want to grab dinner? Like, I've got no plans. I was like, you know what? I've got no plans. Let's grab dinner. I'm like,
If you're
let's get
paying.
a credit
Yeah.
card. If you're paying. But look, he took me to dinner and I told him my journey and I was just so happy to meet new people. I love meeting new people so much and just like hearing their stories. And I talked about my dreams and what I wanted to do and what I moved here for to work on the Ellen show. And he said, oh, so that's why you said yes to dinner. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, I'm the executive producer of the Ellen DeGeneres show.
Stop.
And I was like, how would I have known that? On Tinder, it just says one name. It says your first name. So how could I have ever known that? None of your pictures show it. And he's like, no, you're right. Anyway, I acted so cool. I wasn't like, oh my God. I was like, oh, that's so interesting. But no, we genuinely, there was nothing shallow or opportunistic about it. I genuinely was just like, how is this happening? How is this guy that? It was less of like, oh, don't fuck this up. And it was more of, wow, the world has just somehow the universe has just brought me around to this moment to meet this awesome guy. And we had such a great night. We
Yeah.
chatted, I think it was like 3 hours. We just talked for 3 hours. It was awesome. And he said at the end of it, look, I do want to come in and come meet the other executive producers and come see a taping of the show. I'm like, I get to come in to Warner Brothers and watch a taping of the show. It ended up being an episode of Ellen's 12 Days of Giveaways. And I got every
Oh,
single one of those gifts. It
oh
was
my
so
God.
cool.
Oh my
So
God.
cool. And then afterwards, I got the opportunity to meet the other three executive producers all in one room. And so I didn't fuck that up. I had an entire document. It was like a 20-page document of show ideas, segment ideas, pictures that I had, ways that I could develop segments, games. I just was like, here's some ideas, guys. This is just a
Right.
tiny bit. This is what I've been wanting to do my whole life. I'm
Yeah.
here. Here's a little pitch, and this is just a little sample. It was a great meeting. We had a great time. And they said, look, it's our last week of shows. We're going to Christmas. If something comes up, we'll let you know. And then in January, I got a call mid-January saying, listen, we're about to kick off the first ever like digital leg of the Ellen DeGeneres show. We're about to want to make a digital original content. And this is one of the first shows ever that did this. We'd
Wow.
like you to come on and be a producer. And I was like, absolutely. And I wanted to be on the show. That was my dream. I never thought digital, I never thought about digital. I never thought it was going to, be as big as it is. And I ended up being one of the first producers hired to work on Ellen's digital platforms and digital original content that ended up being like a world leader of the digital space. And so I'm
Some
just
amazing things on
incredibly
that
grateful. And it's led me onto the path that I am now.
Just on the pitch, when you went into the executive producer
Yeah.
meeting, how did you prepare for that? Like, did you research the people? Obviously, you knew the show back to front and you'd had a wealth of
Yeah.
experience. Like, how did you
Yeah.
know what to put forward? And were you okay about just giving over your ideas and going, okay, that's enough?
I was so naive when I went in there. Now that I've been in the industry so long, when you pitch things, like you have to have sent yourself a copy, and there's so much about copyright and stealing ideas. I couldn't have given a. I was like, take whatever you want. I am
Take it.
sitting with the exec producers of my dream show. Here's some ideas. Like, if you take them, then great. Some of my ideas are on the Ellen DeGeneres show. I was 30 years old. I was just so happy to be in that room. So grateful to be in that room. But no, I knew the show inside out. I understand the humor, all the games that they have on the show. That's the kind of fun and games that I was already doing at Nickelodeon. On the
Yeah.
Kids' Choice Awards, on shows called Slime Fest, I was already working on this kind of fun, messy, very playful, almost childlike games. And so coming to Ellen, which is all about joy and childish fun, to be very honest. And so I felt like I already knew the brand and I just kept coming up with pictures that I felt would work on this show with this talent, Ellen and all of her celebs that come on. And
Wow.
they'd been there. They were there from season one. This was season 15 when I came in until season 19. But they lived and breathed the Ellen DeGeneres show, so I lived and breathed the Ellen DeGeneres show, and I just tried to show them that I understand the brand and would love it as much as they do.
I think that's a really important thing too, is you went in with, here is my
Be
pitch.
prepared. Be
Exactly. You
prepared.
went, you
It's
went
it's
a
called an
step
opportunity.
further.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. Which I think is
And I
something
feel like
that,
everyone takes opportunities the right way. Like anytime you have a door that is open or an opportunity to talk to someone, to go to dinner, to grab a coffee, to send an email to someone's personal email that leads a company or inspires you, that's an
Mm.
opportunity to sell yourself, your ideas, and to make a change in your path, to
yeah,
take another step forward.
yeah,
Don't fuck it up.
yeah,
And
Be brave.
don't just be complacent. Don't be
yeah.
complacent. That is an opportunity. And if you don't seize that, then that's on you.
Love that.
Love it. What is the hardest challenge that you've had to overcome in your career?
Myself, 100%.
What do you mean?
There's two parts to this. One of my biggest challenges is me. I have ADHD. I have anxiety. Getting out of my head and that imposter syndrome that we hold. Everyone seems to hold imposter syndrome when you're in the biggest room, that even if you've dreamt of it your whole life. But every single day, I'm like, when are they going to find out about me? When are they going to find
Yeah.
out I'm not that talented, that I'm not good, that I'm just a small, like, Australian guy that came out? But I've also grown up as this super confident kid in my own skin. So I'm like, where is this coming from? So one of my biggest hurdles was overcoming those voices in your head to say, you are here for a reason. You have worked your ass off to get here. Don't question it now. Doesn't matter what environment you're in and how they may talk or make you feel or make you think you feel. You have to be your biggest cheerleader day in and day out. And that's not the easiest thing to do. But you have to constantly find great tools and find ways to remind yourself that you are in this room for a reason and you're in this role for a reason. So just keep going and keep stepping up, keep learning from what's around you, and don't cut yourself down. A lot of people think that other people are there to cut them down. Unfortunately, the majority of the time, I find that it's people cutting themselves down. And so you just got to keep reminding yourself how special and talented you are to get to that position you're in. And then the other side of that, shifting gears from the Australian industry to the American industry.
Yep.
Australian industry is very small, and so I had the opportunity to do so much bigger. So the roles, the scope that I had was so much bigger. Like I was able to produce and direct TV shows when I was 26 years old, 27 years old. That was incredible. You move to America and it is so cutthroat. We're one in thousands in Australia of people in this industry who are absolute rock stars. You come to America and you're one of hundreds of thousands of people who are vying for jobs. But in America, the thing that was so different to Australia is that Australians are so humble. We just love to be there. We love to work together. We love to do a great job. In America, they're like, why aren't you like talking yourself up? Why aren't you big noting yourself? Everyone in like when I got into the industry were like, they're the best at this. They're the only one who can do this. You got to hire them because they're the only one who could do this role. And I'm like, well, I don't talk like that. I'm
Mm.
not the best at this, but I'm the only me. And I hope that that's what this company wants to employ. So that was a big adjustment of just changing to the mindset. What a hard slog it is to get in there because it didn't matter how much experience I had back in Australia at the end of the day. Every question from every interview that I had was, but what have you done in America? And that was hard to break into.
There's a lot of people that face that, I think, acting, directing, but especially friends who are actors. They say it's all well and good to be on a show in Australia, but when you go to America, there
Mm,
are a few people who know what that means, but most people don't. So you're starting again.
totally. And yeah, look, it takes time, but the only thing that I can come to is the persistence and the drive. The fact that everything I said that I would be able to do, I would do and I would follow through. If you gave me the opportunity, I would not let you down. And so that then from word of mouth, it's created what I hope is a good reputation of being trustworthy. And that's hopefully, one of the biggest reasons why I've, landed where I am because I would not let myself down.
So what's the biggest difference between scripted and unscripted? You've worked in both. Curious to know
Oh,
your perspective.
time. I've done so much more unscripted now. I mean, it's actually not true. I've been in daytime TV, which is scripted, but I work in more of the reality side of things. I mean, I've worked in the scripted side when you look at, Home and Away and that script, that's real scripted. But working on like a talk show like the Ellen DeGeneres show, that is scripted. It's the whole episode is scripted, but it's scripted to a point where you ask questions and then the natural conversation happens. What I did on the digital team was we created content where you have like an intro script and then you kind of play a game or a setup. And but this is all the room for anything to happen. It's the improv of whatever that celebrity reacts to with that game, with that question. And that's unscripted. And you just have to be ready as a producer to throw in the next question and to be able to like keep molding that piece to keep them going, to keep recording something great. So even though it is kind of scripted, I still see that as all being unscripted. I love the reality of real joy in a room when you get to set up something and ask a question or something and you have no idea what's going to come out. That is the thrill of being in a room with another human being and trying to get out a piece of magic that you can film and then put out to the world that is beneficial both for us as a company, as a show, but also for them that they would want the world to see, that their PR team are happy to be out there. So finding sort of that middle ground of, what makes great content, but what makes everyone happy has been a good gift to learn. But the scripted side of things, when you're on actual scripted shows, it just takes a lot longer. You have to film things again and again, and you're doing different takes and you're making sure you're covering different camera angles and making sure you're covering the entire scene. And while I love that, and I still feel like I would love to get back into that at some stage, there's just something about being real in a room and not playing characters, just being able to be yourselves and sharing everyone's joy in that moment and whatever point of their lives that they're at. They're promoting a movie, they're promoting their new album, they're talking about the vacation that they took their kids on there, and then they're bantering with our host. That reality of just being able to tell stories and bring joy to so many, I adore. And so I absolutely love working in this side of the industry.
Okay, what is a film that has influenced you?
The first thing that comes to my head is Titanic. That movie in 1998, I think it was the 1998 Oscars. It was 1997 when it came out. I saw that 3 times in cinemas. I'd never seen anything on that scale. It blew my mind so much. And I'm 11 years old. It blew my mind so much that I needed to know how they made this. Like, did they film this back in 1912? Like, what happened? And like, how did they do this? There was a whole ship that they sunk. They sunk a ship. And so I bought every book. I looked at every documentary that they had. I researched how did they make this film to see every photo of the filming process. Looking at James Cameron with this technology of these underwater cameras that he developed for that film, actually going down in submarines to the Titanic to research it himself. He went down there. My mind is blown by this guy and the scale and magnitude of what he is, not just witnessing in life, but then how he can portray that into a film to tell these stories that he's created. So that movie changed my life because I saw a scale on which I had never witnessed before, and that it was possible to achieve just with ingenuity and just with like an idea. And he made it happen. And he blew the schedule, he blew the budget, and it was the biggest film of our time. But yeah, just to see something of that scale, but then to feel so much of it. The love story, the characters. I'd never been moved more in my life, and I was 11 years old. I shouldn't have seen some of those scenes, ladies. There are things I shouldn't have seen in that movie at 11.
I'm curious, from your perspective, what trends are you noticing in the industry?
Everything's going towards streaming and digital, obviously. People consume their media in such different ways. When I first wanted to get into the industry, everything was on TV. It was on linear. We'd turn on like our Australian TV channels that are like free to air, which you don't have in America. You'd go on Channel 7, Channel 9, Channel 10, ABC, SBS. You'd have shows there, but that's how people saw success, ratings on linear TV. And then as digital was coming through, it was there kind of just to support and market the shows. Social media was just there to market the shows so people understood it. Now, being able to monetize content and digital content, social content that only lives on social platforms, not on TV. I worked on a show called Red Table Talk after Ellen, and that was on Facebook. Facebook Watch funded Red Table Talk that we filmed at Jada Pinkett Smith and Will Smith's house. That was a huge moneymaker for them, and Facebook Watch is their biggest show. And that was only on a social media platform. The trend of moving to digital, but now to streaming, It's just wild. Like ratings, people still watch linear TV on cable, but the numbers are nowhere near what they used to be. The number one streaming platform in the world is YouTube. Can you believe that? YouTube, the amount of billions of views that that platform gets monthly is incredible. And what a moneymaker. And they're not making that on linear TV anymore. So just seeing the trends change for how we consume our media, it is all on this little device. And so the fact that not only do we consume our media here, see these cameras, this is what I film content on at the Kelly Clarkson Show. That blows my mind. There's just something about the fact that this is how we consume media. This is how you can film it. And it's direct from, it's made for this platform. And so when the majority of our audience are literally consuming clips from our show and other shows on their social media devices, mind blowing to me. And so being able to make content that is engaging, that stops people from scrolling and stops to watch your content has been something that I've loved to learn and constantly changes. It changes not yearly, it changes daily. New trends that are coming out on TikTok and what the younger generation are watching. You know, it's constantly staying on top of your game, and it makes you feel like you constantly have to be sharp and know what the heck the kids are watching.
Yeah.
And the kids are us still, we're young. But I mean, like every generation has their own love on the platforms. And so we have to cater to almost all of them.
Well, obviously, you've had such a fabulous career and worked with so many different types of personalities and celebrities.
I've had the great privilege of being able to work with so many people that I have either idolized or just looked up to my entire life. And then to be in the same room as them. I remember when Kim Kardashian was coming onto the Ellen show, and then I got to produce Ellen's Burning Questions that I created with her, and she was just sitting there. I'm like, I'm sitting across from Kim Kardashian, and she was the nicest, most incredible, professional, lovely woman that I've ever met. I'm like, oh, she's just one of us. She's just in this industry, working her ass off, creating this brand and a business, and then you meet them in real life, and it was just mind blowing to me that I'm sitting in the same room as Kim Kardashian that you see over every tabloid and every website, every social media platform. And then they're suddenly in the same room. It just blows my mind that that opportunity was given to me. And then I got to work with like legends like Chris Hemsworth, and Hugh Jackman came in, and Nicole Kidman. And you get all the Aussies. It's just really cool to be able to see Aussies as well doing their thing in the industry and like being a tiny part of it. We actually have Nicole Kidman coming on the Kelly Clarkson show soon, which I'm so excited about. Yeah, I don't know about wildest things. I think the wildest thing for me is just seeing that all these people are just human. Everyone's such hardworking people. It's not just like a business side of things. A lot of these people are here because they have a genuine passion and love for what they do, just like I did. I had the dream of working on one show and I worked my ass off to get there. These guys have done the exact same thing in acting, in as a musician, as writers. And to be able to see that from like a slightly different point of view is what is wild to me. And hats off to everyone in this industry because it is a slog no matter where you're coming from. So I'm just happy to be able to witness it and be a small part of it.
Well, and I think it's that thing too of what you said, they're human. And I know we're meant to be on all the time as professionals, like when you are in the spotlight, and don't get me wrong, most of them are very, very privileged, but they're still humans and they're still going through their own emotional stuff. They're going through their personal stuff, and it's work. And sometimes it's really hard to separate that from work, and they just happen to be in the spotlight.
That's the hard thing. The eyeballs on them is the hard thing. That doesn't matter what they're going through. If the world's watching, that is, I can't imagine that pressure or how it must affect the way that you react to things.
Yeah.
And also, everyone's human. A question I get all the time is who's been the rudest or the this or that. And I'm like, number one, I would never answer that question. We are all human. If someone ever came into the show and they might have been like not the most friendly person ever, I don't think, oh, they're a bitch. I think, oh, they're here to work. They're here and they got a game plan. They're doing their thing. I have so much respect for that.
Yeah. Also, we don't know what they're going through or what kind of day they've had, and we all have bad days. So
totally. But also at the same time, I'm very privileged because everyone who comes to the Kelly Clarkson show are literally so excited to be there. I've never met anyone that's been in a bad mood. Everyone is just so excited to meet Kelly, to hear her sing. And so I'm at a job where everyone comes in probably in their most happy state. And so that's awesome.
Yeah, it's amazing. Amazing.
I have a question. You got your dream job. Were you like, okay, this is the pinnacle. Now what?
What a question. I talk to myself about that all the time. Yes, I talk to myself a lot. It's funny because when that ended, I didn't know what to do with myself. I had so much of my identity in that job. And that's a huge lesson that I learned. So I'm so grateful that I had that lesson to learn. That I put way too much of my identity in, oh, I got my dream job. I'm working at the Ellen DeGeneres show. And everyone's like, the Ellen show? Oh my God, that's amazing. It comes with clout. It comes with ego. I felt so seen because everyone watched that show. So when it came to an end, I realized you need to have so much more outside of your job, of your own personal identity, to make sure that you're keeping your mental health sane, that you're taking care of yourself. Because at the end of the day, when that ends, who are you? And so from that moment, I just promised myself that going forward, not only was I wanted to just keep the momentum going because I worked at this amazing show. I just wanted to keep going. Where can I build from? What can I learn? What are new skills that I can learn? But how do I keep progressing with the industry? Because if anything, working at that show taught me that, how big the digital industry can be. But, I just needed to make sure that I was creating a really healthy work-life balance. Because when work really does take a lot from you, you need to take care of yourself. Once I left the Ellen show, I was just looking for what that next big thing was. Where was my direction? And so when a dear friend of mine, Kevin Huvane, who runs CAA, the talent agency, he introduced me to Ellen Rackerton, who was one of the original producers of the Oprah show. She was producing a show called Red Table Talk. And he was like, do you want to take a meeting with her? I was like, yes, I would love to take a meeting with Ellen Rackerton. It was incredible. I had a great meeting with her and I started the next week. And so that was just like, wait, what? I'm driving to Will Smith's house next week to film this TV show. And that's when I went, okay, don't put all your eggs in one basket. It isn't just one show. Don't put everything into your identity. There is so much opportunity out there. Let's keep climbing and let's keep like supporting all your friends in the industry. And that's why I always love to, whenever friends ask for advice or can you introduce me to someone and whatnot, I will be the first to say yes. If anyone's like, hey, my friend's starting in the industry, could you possibly take like a coffee meeting with them to give them any advice? 100%, because I would not be where I am without that person who gave me that time to have that coffee. So for me, going from that show and now building myself up to be where I am now, I just want to keep helping everyone along the way that's in my friendship group who's like a niece of someone who's starting out. There's nothing more that I want to do now than to just keep this industry alive and bringing new, amazing talent in and just teaching them the tiny things that I know. So that's also part of now my identity. It's not my job, it's what I can do within my community.
I was going to
service mentality of giving back.
It is. It's kind of, you've had opportunities because of introductions and people have given you or opened a door for you and now you're able to open a door for other people. It's fantastic.
And being in New York, it's like, there's so many people who are trying to make it as well, especially here at NBC. There's even pages who reach out to me. The NBC page program is the hardest program to get into and they're already so talented. So to be able to meet a whole bunch of these kids who will literally be my boss in a couple of years, I know it. It's inspiring to be a part of it.
Yeah, love it. What is some advice that you would give to Australians, but also anybody trying to get into the industry or who's in the industry? Any kind of advice?
Be kind to the people around you that you work with. Be kind to yourself. A lot of people, including myself in the past, we're in this job, we're in this day, and this is our reality. It's not. Think about your long-term goals. Think about your long-term trajectory in this industry. The person that you might have talked down to, who was your PA, will be the director of some show one day, and you might need a job. And this isn't opportunistic. I mean, genuinely, be a kind person. I am so grateful to walk onto a set and to be able to say good morning to people every day. Everyone at this show is just the most incredible people, but I walk on with the most obnoxious energy, saying good morning to everyone. And if someone's having a down day, hey, are you okay? What's going on? Do you want to talk? Taking care of the people around you is important because you don't know what people are going through. And when we are a family and a community of people working together for a common goal, and you can butt heads, be kind. Think about that everyone has stuff going on outside of work. And so, you got to take care of everyone, but also you don't know what's going to come back to bite you in the ass. I've seen people who have treated people like shit, and those people who got treated like shit ended up being, leaders at companies that they've ended up needing to apply for jobs for. And I'm like, I should have been a bit nicer. But be kind to yourself. It's going to be a hard road. There's a lot of hurdles that come up and it can make you question your character, your talents, your values. Stay true to yourself. Be kind. Be lenient. There's going to be hard days, but you just got to keep stepping forward. My only advice that I give to people who are saying, but how do I get there? As a producer, our job is to get from A to B. I'm at A. How do you get to B? There's no one road. There are many paths that get to B. Some are faster, some are longer, but they all get to B. And you don't compare yourself to other people's paths. You just got to keep walking. And as long as you keep taking one step in front of the other, however you're getting there, you're succeeding. So just be kind to yourself.
What is your best memory on set?
Oh God, there's too many. Someone asked me this the other day. They're like, what's your most amazing moment on set? I'm like, guys, I literally got to watch Kelly Clarkson sing with Dolly Parton on set, and I got to film them interviews on stage. I'm like, how can you get past that? But there's just so many incredible moments. It's actually called daytime memory. Ellen had it, Kelly has it. They talk about the fact that you don't remember who was on your show yesterday because every show you have so many guests, so many stories, so many movies that you almost forget what's been on your show. As a producer, I forget some of the things I've done. I'm going to then go to something that's a bit more recent because I have bad long-term memory now. But I actually texted Amanda about this. Amanda and I have a connecting band of Coldplay. We have such a beautiful, strong affiliation with them. Their music represents so much to us with our lives and our stories, and we connect over it. And so just 3 weeks ago, I got to be on stage in soundcheck with Kelly and Chris Martin singing one of Chris Martin's new songs together. They duetted together. And I got to be there and just film the interviews, film the behind the scenes, and just be there and witness Kelly and Chris as musicians, as humans, coming together and working out how they were going to sing this song together, working out harmonies, Chris playing a chord, Kelly singing that, what if I did this? And I'm sitting there going, I wish Amanda was here. This is such a beautiful moment. And to be there as not just a producer making this content that's now up online on Coldplay's actual Instagram as content that I have filmed, which is mind-blowing to me. But to be able to, as a human, be there in a room full of these talented musicians who are doing something that you pay money and that you love to go and watch, and you're seeing something that not many humans get to see and witness. I was so grateful in that moment, and I was really emotional. And I texted Amanda straight away and I said, I wish you were here. And it just makes you very grateful for all the moments. And that's why I'm kind to everyone. It's why I'm toxically positive, because no matter how hard the days are, that day will pass. And tomorrow I'll have more opportunities like this. And I just want to keep going because I get to listen to Kelly Clarkson sing every day. It's so cool.
Pretty awesome. Yeah. It's so interesting, actually, because
music connects people, isn't it? It's so beautiful. And so to work
really
on a show that is solely based around music with one of the world's most talented singers.
Yeah.
Woo! There's so many opportunities. There's just so many more moments that are going to come. So I just can't wait for more.
Oh, I love him. He is just a ball of energy. It's so fascinating how his journey panned out. You hear a story like that and it makes you go, okay, this person was meant to be exactly where they are.
100%. He set out what he wanted to do and he hit it. So I think it also shows the power of being really clear on what it is that you want. Where do you want to go? What I love about Andrew's journey is that he knew the specifics of shows he wanted to work on, but he was open to how he was going to get there. And I think that is actually a really good thing to take away from this for everybody. Know where you want to go, but be open to the journey of how you're going to get there.
All right, we'll wrap it up there. But as always, we want to hear from you. Thank you guys for all the love that we're getting. Get in touch with us over on our website, undertowcontent.com. Follow us on socials, all the things. You know what to do.
Thank you so much for stuffing us in your ears. Make sure to catch our next episode with the brilliant Aussie screen powerhouse that is Julie Eckersley. Subscribe, follow our show wherever you get your podcasts, and do us a favour and share it with 2 people who you think might get a lot out of it.
Great idea.
We appreciate you guys. See you soon.
Bye.
Cut is an Undertow Content podcast. Your hosts are Amanda Brown and Nell Nacken. Music composed by Genevieve Patrick. Produced by Meg Hipwell and Ali Aitken.